So your content framing question today is, what's happening in Alvin Ailey? And your craft question is, how does research work? Hey third graders, this is the first part of your lesson for today, which is Module 4, Lesson 5. This is your warm-up. It's not really necessarily from this curriculum that we're using at our school, but I think it's important that we discuss what's happening around the world currently, and so to integrate kind of skills of what we've been learning in our curriculum, I decided to include this to start our conversation. And so I want you to take a look at these two photographs that are attached to your warm-up, and I want you to notice and wonder about these two photographs, as well as notice some similarities and differences between the two photographs. And I know in second grade, you did have a civil rights module, I believe, and I know you read some text about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So here is the first photograph I want you to notice. I want you to look at the signs, read the signs, look at the people, figures, all the elements of art we've discussed before. And then I want you to take a look at this picture. This is a picture. I'm not sure exactly what city this is, but this is a photo of what's happening today. So I just want you to notice some similarities, some differences, any other things that you've heard from the news or any thoughts, you can please write them out here. I would love to read them, and then we can talk more about what's happening and what we can do as third graders to make sure that our voices are heard, as well as understand what this represents. Okay? So I'm excited to read all your responses. Alright, so here is the first part of your classwork for today's lesson. There are 3 TDQs that I want you to answer. Before you start answering, I recommend you re-listening or rereading the book, either from the file that's uploaded on Google Classroom or the read aloud video that I'm going to upload. Alright, so the first TDQ says, review the chapter headings in Alvin Ailey. How does Andrea Davis Pinkney organize the information in this book? Okay, so the second question kind of gives you a hint for the first question. So what time periods did Andrea Davis Pinkney use to organize the information? Okay, so I want you to give me specific years. And then the third one is, what is the effect of choosing to include only some time periods in the biography? Okay, so why do you think Andrea Davis Pinkney included those years in this book about Alvin Ailey? And then the next part is, I want you to notice at least 4 different sources of inspiration throughout this book, from beginning of the book to the end. Okay, and so here you're going to write a time order word, which includes first, then, next, finally, or after that. And here on this box, I want you to write down what inspired him during that time. Okay, so at least 4 different sources of inspiration. Okay. And that's it for the first part of your lesson. Alright, so here is the last part of your classwork for today, which is a writing planner. This should look familiar because last week you were asked to write down your thesis to the writing prompt, or in response to the writing prompt, what inspires the artist Brian Pinkney. So before we continue, I just want us to think about our craft question today, which is, how does research work? And so when an author wants to write a book about someone like Andrea Davis Pinkney, how do you think he or she knows what to say about that person? Right? And so thinking about research, we know that you need to do your research, right? So an author needs to do the research, could read a book about this person or topic. You can look on the internet, you can ask someone, or you can watch videos, right? And so something that I want us to kind of read through today are some interviews with Andrea Davis Pinkney, as well as a short article about Brian Pinkney. And so after reading through these different articles, I want you to go back to your lesson 4 classwork and to rewrite your thesis on this new classwork page. So you can go back to your old classwork file to see what you wrote, and then I want you to edit your thesis to see if you can include 2 different points, okay? And then once I'm done reading those 3 articles or bits of those articles, I'll continue to explain the rest of your writing planner. Okay? All right. So here we have a little article about Brian Pinkney, and I want us to just focus on, actually I'm going to read the whole thing. Okay, so the son of Jerry and Gloria Jean Pinkney, Brian Pinkney was born in Boston in 1961. Both his father, an acclaimed illustrator, and his mother, an author, milliner, and silversmith, had their own studios at home. The Pinkneys did not pressure any of their 4 children to become artists, but focused instead on sharing the joy they found in art, music, and literature. For Brian Pinkney, art has always been a family activity. When I was a child, my mother would pull out paper and we'd all start drawing. Soon, drawing came to me naturally. My mother often found me in the corner drawing and would say, "Wow, that's beautiful. Go show your father." Eventually, Pinkney had his own studio, which was a converted walk-in closet where he could do his art. This included sculpting figures out of pipe cleaners and sketching robots along the margins of his homework. He earned a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in 1983 from the Philadelphia College of Art, where his father had also studied. After working as a freelance illustrator for several years, he returned to college, earning in 1990 a Master of Fine Arts degree in illustration from the School of Visual Arts in New York City. It's in Manhattan. Working as an illustrator for a magazine art department, Pinkney met his wife, Andrea Davis, who was a magazine editor and writer, and the 2 were married in 1991. Besides the numerous other books Pinkney has illustrated, he and his wife have created 9 picture books, from 7 Candles for Kwanzaa, 1993, to a series of biographies of famous African Americans, including Duke Ellington, the Piano Prince, and his orchestra, 1998. The 2000 Coretta Scott King Award is just the latest of the awards Pinkney has received, which include 3 Coretta Scott King honors and 2 Caldecott honors. Okay. That is a photograph of Brian Pinkney. And then I also want us to take a look at what kind of research Andrea Davis Pinkney did in order to write this book. So here is a question: how do you do your research? What methods do you suggest? This is from Scholastic. What Andrea Davis Pinkney says is, "I always start my research at the library by reading tons of books, but I also like to get primary source material. So, for example, when I was writing the book Alvin Ailey, I spent a long time talking to Alvin Ailey's mother, who told me all about her son's life when he was a little boy." So again, she was able to hear Alvin Ailey's mother's stories to understand what his life was like as a little boy. As we know in our book, we focus a lot on his childhood, right? And also here is a New York Times article about Andrea Pinkney. And her husband Brian Pinkney. Andrea Pinkney described the research she did before writing Alvin Ailey. She interviewed childhood friends and family members of the late dancer, and both she and her husband studied jazz dance to understand the choreography they would depict in their book. Miss Pinkney told children a secret about writing. "You can write on anything at any time," she said, describing the time she wrote inside her shoe when there was no paper handy. So again, here we know that she interviewed childhood friends and family members, including his mother, which we read in the previous interview. But also, very interestingly, her and her husband studied jazz dance to understand the choreography they would depict in their book. So they also learned the dance, or jazz dance, they studied it so that they can be able to illustrate what the dance movements look like on the pages, as well as being able to describe his choreography better. So great authors, right, do the research so that they can really give us accurate information by speaking to family and friends of the person that they are writing about, as well as researching their passion, right? So now that we've kind of seen 3 different articles about what helped Brian Pinckney and Andrea Davis Pinckney to write this book, I want you to rethink about what inspired the artist Brian Pinckney. Okay? All right. So I want you to take a look at the rest of the writing planner. This should look familiar. It's describing your knowledge to a T. So whatever point you wrote here in point 1, I want you to write it down in this box for books right here. So state your first point in support of your thesis. So you're going to restate whatever point you made here. And then you need to find evidence, elaboration, and then a conclusion statement. Okay, and the same goes for point 2. Whatever point you wrote here, I want you to write it here. Okay? And again, you are going to be able to continue your own research if you'd like. You can find more information about Brian Pinckney on Google. Please make sure that you are looking at websites that are reliable so that you don't get any false information. Okay? And then your conclusion paragraph is you are reinforcing your thesis and you're reflecting on the significance of what your essential idea was. So what you think inspired the artist Brian Pinckney, you're going to restate that here, and then as well as the significance, right, of how it's important, why it's important that you're mentioning that this source of inspiration is. All right, so the 4th paragraph of the back matter of our book, Alvin Ailey, tells us more specific ways that Mr. and Mrs. Pinckney found their research on Alvin Ailey. So if you follow along with me, in preparation for the creation of this book, Miss Davis Pinckney and Mr. Pinckney took classes in the Dunham Modern Dance Technique and studied dance with Ella Thompson Moore, one of the original Alvin Ailey dancers. Okay? And so I just want to also emphasize that just like I had the link last week on Thursday of the 2013 National Book Festival video, with beginning the video at the timestamp of 6:40 and ending at 10:26, where you are able to figure out what inspires Brian Pinckney to create illustrations. So I want you to refer back to that video today as well. It will be linked in the description. And so please make sure you rewatch that video before you begin your planner, because you are going to have to find evidence from that video as well as other sources that you find online in order to help you with your writing. Okay? Alright, so here's your question set for today's lesson. The directions say to read page 17 of Alvin Ailey by Andrea Davis Pinckney, the first page of 1949 to 1953 Lester Horton's Dance School, beginning with More Than Anything and ending with Through His Thighs and Feet. And then you can also look at the illustration on page 16 to answer the 3 questions. So this is the illustration on page 16. And I'm going to read aloud page 17 for you. So 1949 to 1953 Lester Horton's Dance School. More than anything, Alvin wanted to study dance, But when Alvin arrived in Los Angeles, not everyone could take dance lessons. In 1949, not many dance schools accepted black students, and almost none taught the fluid moves that Alvin liked so much. Almost none but the Lester Horton Dance Theater School, a modern dance school that welcomes students of all races. Lester's door was open to anyone serious about learning to dance, and at age 18, Alvin Ailey was serious, especially when he saw how Lester's dancers moved. One student, Carmen de Lavallade, danced with a butterfly's grace. Another, James Truitt, made modern dance look easy. But Lester worked his students hard. Sometimes they danced all day. After hours in the studio, droplets of sweat dotted Alvin's forehead. He tingled inside, ready to try Lester's steps once more. At first, Alvin kept time to Lester's beat and followed Lester's moves. Then Alvin's own rhythm took over, and he started creating his own steps. Alvin's tempo worked from his belly to his elbows, then oozed through his thighs and feet. Okay. So words to know, the word fluid means showing a smooth, graceful style. Okay. Number 1. Read the sentence from the passage. Then Alvin's own rhythm took over and he started creating his own steps. What is rhythm? A repeated pattern of movement or sound. B, the sounds that are produced by the mouth. C, a strong belief about something. Or D, a fast speed or pace. Number 2. Why did Alvin Ailey choose to study at the Lester Horton Dance Theater School? Choose 2 answers. A, it accepted students of all races. B, it was the only dance school in Los Angeles. C, it taught modern dance that he enjoyed. D, it offered an easy dance program. E, it accepted students younger than 18. F, it taught ballet and formal dance. So again, for number 2, you need to make sure to click 2 of these checkboxes. Okay? And number 3, which sentence best tells how the illustration on page 16 helps readers understand the passage? So here, what I want you to make sure you do is look at the illustration closely, this one right here, to see how it helps us understand page 17. A, it shows how excited Alvin was as he watched dancers at Lester Horton School. B, it shows how many different dance steps Alvin made up all by himself. C, it shows how hard the students at Lester Horton School worked each day. D, it shows how the students at Lester Horton School welcomed Alvin. Okay, again, looking at this picture. Connecting to